lights, camera, action, I was like, what is all of this? Like, coming from the swamp, I mean, we grew up literally swimming with alligators. It was a lot to take in. This record is so precious to me because one, the making of it was absolutely beautiful. I'd never worked with Mike Elizondo before. And if you don't know who Mike Elizondo is, do a deep dive. He is absolutely incredible. The thing about him that is so unique isn't just the pedigree, but his humility. And it was one of those kind of work relationships where I was really able to let my hair down and try new things and say, what if we did the choir like this? Or what if I got to get my hands dirty in the creative process, which was really, really fun. And then the other thing that was really beautiful was the songwriters I got to write songs with. A lot of them were brand new. Like, a lot of them I didn't know. And this season, for whatever reason, they just kind of rolled into my life. My team put us all together, and it was truly remarkable. Like, Natalie Hemby is a gem, and she really gave me my voice on this project. Amy Wadge, John Green, Jason Ingram, there's just a plethora of writers that I got to curate this entire record with. And I think for not only the way it was made, but the lyrical content and some of the sonic places that we go, like new melodies that are kind of different to how I've done melodies in the past. Not every single song is a ballad. And so I think having that energy on the record has made it really, really dear. A lot of people always ask the question, like, is this the record that you've always wanted it to be? And I can genuinely say yes. Like, if this is the last record I ever made, I'll be really sad because of how much I loved making this record, but I treasure it so much that I don't know, it feels like all the other records kind of amounted to this one. The songwriters pushed me in incredible ways. Natalie, she can come up with melodies that are like beyond. So we have this one song called New, and it's kind of, higher for my register. For whatever reason, when we were writing it, it was like completely simple, super easy. The more I started tracking it, the more I was like, this is actually pretty hard to sing. And she just can hear notes and sculpt them in a way that it could be anything from 90s R&B to like a true folk song. Like, she has such a bandwidth of melodies inside of her that I feel like allowed me to be more expressive on this record, and with that expression challenged me. In the studio, whenever we were tracking some songs, Mike sat me down and he said, okay, go to the mic and I'm gonna have you do something that might be a little bit out of your comfort zone. So I was like, okay, great. He said, we're gonna make sure, like, for this particular part, you just talk. And I was like, oh, come on. I am like not cool. I'm not like a hip hop artist. I don't know how to do this. But it was so much fun that I got to just kind of embody and impersonate another version of myself that maybe is the kind that you sing to yourself in the closet or in the bathroom when you're getting ready, but not necessarily to showcase. And I think some of those challenges were really beautiful on this record. It also gave me a different type of confidence because it constantly pushed me forward, which I think is really special. But I would definitely say the melodic choices that we brought on this record, Natalie and a lot of the writers really just pushed me. And same with like John Green, we have this song called Inherited, and just hearing his piano, I told him, like, the way that he plays is as if my heritage just fell out onto the keys. Like, he has this way of making sounds and drawing chords that, and even the movement, it's not even just chord selection, like the way he moves on a piano is so breathtaking. So working with him was really beautiful because I felt like his piano playing really sculpted melodies in a sonic landscape I'd always longed to go. It's self-titled because I was at dinner with two of my best friends, and we were at Lyra, which I absolutely love. And they said, what is the record gonna be named? Like, And I said, well, the reality is we've been working on this record for 2 years and I haven't figured out a name by now. I just don't know. And they said, well, we know. And I said, okay, what do you think? And they said, we think it should be self-titled. Like, you have completely evolved in this record making process, not just from the other records that you've done, but just you as yourself has, shown a new light, and you need to express that on this record. You need to talk about that with this record. And I feel like I left them and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stew on this for a bit. And then the next day I'm at the studio and my manager was there like, what are you gonna name this thing? And I was like, well, and she goes, self-titled. And I was like, I was thinking that. And so because we both kind of went to the same conclusion at the same time, I was like, I'm gonna go for this. So it's self-titled because of all the new places that I got to venture on this record. And it definitely showcases a lot more of who I am on this record. Or other facets that just haven't been told quite yet. We took a writer's trip to New Orleans. It was Mike Elizondo, Jason Ingram, and Natalie Hemby. So the four of us were all together. And the very first night we get there, it's like a scene from a movie. You can't plan this stuff, especially in New Orleans. It's like one of those places that is just so unique and so cultural and colorful and expressive and made of music, right? So I'm taking them to dinner. We leave dinner and we just go walk through the quarter. And we're at this one particular street that's known for music. And all of a sudden, there's this band busking on the side of the road, which they're crushing it. Like, street musicians in New Orleans are studio musicians. They're incredible. This band is busking on the side and a car drives by and dark tent and everything. And they start to really slow down and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is about to either turn really bad or really, really bad. And we were about to find out, And I'm thinking, oh, please, this is like night number 1, let's not do this. And he rolls down the window slowly and pulls out his trumpet and plays in time to the band that was playing on the street. And it just started to slowly rain at that point. And I was dancing in the streets and just showing them like, this is what our culture is. And it was so beautiful. Mike said that that moment and that trip changed the entire trajectory for him and how he was gonna create this record. I think it was Kaleidoscope Jesus. I think that's the first one we wrote during that trip. And then These Are the Days we did there as well. And there was one other one. I can't remember what the other one was. All the brass that comes out of New Orleans, it's a sound that I heard my whole life. And to get to showcase any of that on the record was such a dream. But it got taken to the next level because the horns, the section that plays in the band with me, they were the section that played on the record. And that was just so beautiful because every single night you have people that are bringing these songs to life for so many people, night after night after night. And so to pay homage to the people that have left home, come on the road to bring this music was really special to be able to go back into the studio and say, okay, now what, the flair that you bring on the road, how do we get that on this record? And they crushed it. They did a great job. So Natalie brought the song New. She brought the story. And Mike had made a track, not fully like built out or anything, just like the essence. And she said, actually, I have an idea for this track. I want to write a song called New. So my ears perk up. Like, I love titles that are just one word. It's so clean and just, I don't know, I love that. And I said, okay, what is this going to be about? She was like, well, I have this friend who I love and I've met in a later season in life. And I would have not even known the old version of this person because of how much their life has been changed and for the good. And I was like, okay, great. So she wanted to write a song all about people's lives being able to change and believing in humanity, that even in the worst of times, it can all become better. And so that song was just a blast to write. We have this, one day I'm gonna be able to share this clip, but it's me singing on the microphone that we were just using for the writing session. So I'm just like this. It got a little late. I was getting sleepy, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna sing this. It's so much fun. And Natalie is filming, and then she turns the camera to herself, and she's like doing all of these expressions and just lip singing to the entire experience. And it was the pure essence of what it's like to write with Natalie Hemby. She's just purely passion around every corner. Through life, when you want to be a singer, songwriter, artist, whatever, you start to draw from so many other expressions. Like, people always ask, who are your musical influences? And you kind of assess, like, what will my sound be one day? What will I finally get to sound like when I arrive? And for years and years and years, like back to my childhood, I always wanted that UK soul influence to kind of be the driving force of my sound. And not to say that there weren't elements of that with Look Up Child and How Can It Be. I feel like this song just showcased it to the core. Like, this is exactly how, as a 16-year-old, when I'm dreaming of singing one day, how I long to sound. And that was written with John Green and Natalie. And I mean, that was my first time ever writing with John. We wrote Waiting and Inherited that day. And the way that he was able to bring that track to life, make it something beautiful. And then I came back and sang on top of it. Some of the vocals are actually from the demo on that track, which just shows the essence of how we captured this record. It was just so special. He's from the UK, and he knows how to bring those sensibilities in on somebody who's just from the swamp. That was beautiful to me. That's just the sound I always longed to have represent my music. That title Natalie brought, Kaleidoscope Jesus, and I remember thinking, this is the dopest song title I've ever heard. I was like, what in the world, Natalie? And it was kind of one of those things where she was like, you might be the only artist that can kind of pull this off, because I don't know if anybody's gonna know what that means. But for me, it was the amalgamation of all of these colors and the way that life brings unique people into your world at such a time, right? And I had just finished this time in New Orleans and met a plethora of people, and I found myself so drawn to so many stories. Like, I could not get away from the stories of the passerby just on the street. And I think what it is like my love for people comes from Jesus. When I see who he is and when I learn of his character and his nature, I see like how my world turns to love for the world. And with that song, I was like, okay, I was talking with my manager about the tour, like what should we do? And I knew that I wanted there to be this whimsical element to the tour that would kind of draw people in, like pique people's curiosity, if you will. And she was like, well, why don't we name it the Kaleidoscope Tour? And I was like, that is perfect, because when I was a little girl, my Aunt Tracy had kaleidoscopes, and I would just sit with them and look through the scope and turn them and just get lost in a world of wonder. And I feel like that's what shows are. Every person comes, it's different shards of glass, you know, like how a kaleidoscope is built. And each night is like a different turn of the scope, because each night becomes something different because of who is in the seats. Like, the audience really does change the entire environment, and it just brings a kaleidoscope of color. So that's what I wanted to name the tour. The primary thing that I noticed from songwriting from Look Up Child to this record is the storytelling element. Just because of going through COVID and having, you know, lots of idle time, I would pass people on the street and just create a story for them. And I found myself really drawn to some of these more storytelling. Like, there's ways that you can bring people in through the art of storytelling that you can't just from other styles of songwriting. And in meeting Natalie, I kind of, it's funny because of being in Nashville for so long, I found myself drawn to certain shows and certain, like Holly Williams, I'll never forget this song that she wrote that I wept. I had to leave the venue because I was crying so hard. And then the next morning was woken up out of my sleep crying still because of the quality of this song. Like the way that the lyrics struck me to the core. I've never had an experience like that with a song before. And Nashville kind of brought this new perspective to songwriting for me. And with that, being from Louisiana, I knew there were elements of my past and my history that I wanted to bring to the record as well. And so I think the blend of that, the soul sounds that come out of New Orleans, some of the jazz that comes out of New Orleans, even some of the Zydeco that comes from Lafayette, and like certain acoustic elementations that we brought onto this sonically were different than Look Up Child. Like for instance, Saint Ferdinand, I'd never had a track release that was me, and the feature was the acoustic guitar. I've never done that. I've always been drawn to the Rhodes or to the piano, but the acoustic, which is kind of funny because of being in Nashville, like that's what drives a lot of songs here, right? For whatever reason, I was just always more drawn to the Rhodes. And with that, we wrote this song, Saint Ferdinand, and it's kind of the blend of the two worlds. We have John Batiste on melodica and Natalie Hemby singing background vocals. And so John Batiste, he's from New Orleans, he's a New Orleans native. Natalie's from Nashville, and it was kind of like the two worlds becoming one. And I can see that sprinkled all throughout the record in ways that weren't necessarily on Look Up Child. John, I've known for a couple years now, and he is one of the most prolific individuals. His talent on the piano is beyond, like just absolutely incredible. But I know a lot of his friends, like we kind of have similar circles, and a lot of the guys that I know in New Orleans grew up with him, going to NOCA and going to the school. And they said like, even when he was in high school, he was leagues, like way beyond what a high school student should carry or possess as far as talent is concerned. And when you meet him, you're so drawn in. I mean, he is such a unique individual that just really loves the world, and you can feel that in your interactions with him. So the first time I hung with him, we did an event in New Orleans, and the friendship just kind of grew from there. So much energy. Like he does not hold back on the energy. I love it, love it. The most vulnerable song. I think, gosh, there's a lot. This, I will say that as well. This record, how is it different from the songwriting perspective? It is a lot more vulnerable than anything I've ever put out before. So there's multiple songs, but the one I'll go with is Valuable. That song, I was leaving a counseling session. I had just worked with my therapist, and she asked me a question that it was like a series of questions to make you ask yourself a question. And I guess by the end of it, what we had concluded was the question that I base all of my life interactions off of is, am I valuable? I didn't have any realization of this prior. I just thought, oh, these are odd quirks, or these are little things, like little insecurities or whatever. But at the basis, she was like, I want you to ask yourself that question. And as you go about with different interactions, see, what is answering this? What is fulfilling this? What's healthy about this? What's not healthy about this? And I leave her office. I go to grab some food. I'm sitting in the parking lot before going to write with Lori McKenna, who is a legend in of herself. And I'm sitting in the parking lot, and I just get that chorus idea. And I sing it into my phone and go into the writing session. And I'd never met Lori, didn't know her, and she embraced it. So I was just thinking, oh, maybe this is something. I don't really know how she is in the writing room. I don't know if she's like, I'm coming in with the ideas, this is how it's gonna be, you can love it or leave it. Or if she was gonna be someone that embraced other ideas. I didn't know. I was so green and as far as working with her. And so whenever I shared that chorus with her, she just brought it to the next level. She added the B section of the chorus, and we really dove in with each other on the verses and brought just like the human experience to life in that regard. So I love that song, and that would definitely be considered one of the most vulnerable. Oh, that's a great question. I think one thing that I've learned in the process of making this record is that the people who you creatively surround yourself with are deeply vital to your growth. Mike was someone who never squandered me bringing ideas to the table. If he ever said no, it wasn't because of a lack of interest or like, I just subjectively don't like that. There was always like rhythm, rhyme, and meter. There was a reason to why, this sonically won't work because the keys are doing this and that's gonna overlap frequency wise, or, this is, like there was always just an educated reason for why versus a subjective reason. And I feel like he brought that part of my voice out so deeply on this record. It was so collaborative with all of the whole band. We all went down on the floor at the same time. So it was this super old school, like Muscle Shoals, Aretha Franklin, just very old approach to making a record. I was in the booth and all the band members were down on the floor, and we were looking at each other and picking up cues and listening to the way each person was playing or singing. And that really built the core of the record. And so I think that experience taught me a lot, taught me how to step out in front of people that would absolutely intimidate me. The musicians on this record are like bar none. I mean, Nate Smith, he's on drums and he like blew my mind. But he has been playing behind Yeva, and Yeva is like one of the most incredible vocalists of our generation, I believe. And so when I got in the booth and I was like, he's been hearing her for the past 6 months, and I'm over here like, well, we're gonna see what I can squeak out. You know, there's something about that pressure that actually was really healthy and really good. And it challenges you to find greater parts of yourself. So all that to say, if I had to say, what did I learn on this record? It is how to step out with an idea, how to not be intimidated in the room, and how to trust that thing inside of you that says, hey, what about this idea or what about that idea? Because a lot of times, like for whatever reason, Mike's humility in the process brought out parts of me that I hadn't yet brought to a studio before and into the creative space. So that was really fun. It was very collaborative. I feel like what this process provided was assuredness. Like there's this certain type of, like now going into a writer's room, I feel like because of Natalie has 11 songs on this record, and she really spoke in to how to stay creative, how to stay childlike, even with the pressure of like, is your song gonna amount to something? She doesn't even, I don't feel like her mind goes to that place. It literally is just, how much fun are we about to have writing this? Because that's it's gonna reveal itself. You know, people are gonna hear that in the song. Or what depth did we go to for this lyric? Did we really go to the core of who we are, or did we kind of fudge this? She just was someone who really encouraged me to be who I am in the process of making music. And for what it's worth, you know, she was someone who really allowed me to discover new places. And then I also watched her interactions in her personal life. And that just allowed me, I tell her she's like the big sister I never had, because it grew me up in a way where now in my personal interactions, it's not even like superiority, it's just a lack of inferiority. And I think that's something really, really fun to get to discover. Okay, so You Say was right after my first Dove Awards. I had never, like, lights, camera, action, I was like, what is all of this? Like, coming from the swamp, I mean, we grew up literally swimming with alligators. It was a lot to take in. And I felt like after that award show, it was kind of a fork in the road. Even though it was very early in my career, I could see the trajectory of where some of this was going to start going. And I was really scared. I was like, I don't know if I want a public life. Like, I kind of like just being me. I like making songs. I love creating. I don't know if I necessarily want a spotlight on my life. And it was really, that fork in the road was really a challenge for me. So I woke up the next day from the Dove Awards with kind of like sweat on my brow, just like, holy cow, that was a lot. And I had won several awards, but it wasn't about that as much as it was like, I am now exposed. I don't know if I didn't know if I really wanted that to be a part of my career. And I went into the studio with Paul Mabry and Jason Ingram. And I remember just saying like, I'm having like a lot of insecurity about this. I kind of like don't know if I want to go all the way with this or if I want to like go back home and be in my comfort zone, you know? And they said, well, why don't we just replace all the doubt and all the lies with the truth? And that's what we did. And it took about 2 hours. We wrote the song, and it was just one thing after the next. So like taking the lie, like when you say, when I feel like I don't belong, like you say I do, you know? When I feel like I'm not loved, like in this space, like how do I wrestle with that? And then we replace it with what he says. And so in that process of kind of refining the doubt and the fear and the insecurity with the truth, that's kind of how the lyrics were penned. My first like true reaction to the song, ironically, wasn't from the radio. It was from the demo. So that day we had written the song, made the demo, sang it down. And when we played it back, I was like, wait, what? And it was the first song that we had written since How Can It Be, since that record. I got in the car, I drove to my manager's house, and I was like, I am perplexed right now. I don't know if I'm just like in the feels because I was in the writing room or if this is something, but I'm freaking out right now. So she was like, yeah, this is a really great song. Like, and I said, I think we just did it. I think we just did it again. Like, I thought this was gonna take a long time to be able to write because it had been like 3 years I'd been touring. So I thought, I'm gonna be so rusty. It's gonna take a lot of sessions before I kind of tap back in. And it was the very first write. So it was more like the 3 years were building up and I was kind of storing, and then it all kind of fell out. But ironically, I didn't think that song was gonna be the one that was successful. Like, I thought Rescue was gonna be way more successful than You Say. And it just goes to show that in the process of making a song, when you're just making the song to make the song without the agendas and all the things, it's really profound how much of a journey it can take you on, because I did not expect what came, and it made that process all the more beautiful because I got to live in the wonder and the excitement and the like, whoa, that was not planned. Holy cow, how's this working out? I remember whenever it played on mainstream radio for the first time. And what happened was there was someone in, one of the program director's wives was in like a yoga class or something, and they had played it. And she went to her husband and was like, you gotta play this on the radio. Like, this song is blowing my mind. And he was like, I mean, yeah, sure. And she was like, no, I'm telling you as your wife, you gotta play this song. And so he was like, okay, fine. He started playing it. And that was, I didn't have a mainstream label. We had no mainstream radio plan, nothing like that. Like, it organically made its way there because of someone in a hot yoga class who wanted to hear it on the radio. And so when you see those kind of details woven in, it just makes songwriting all the more beautiful because you really never know where a song will land. Every night it's like the song that I look forward to because I know it's the song that everybody's waiting to sing. Like, they're like, okay, come on, get to it because we're ready to sing this song. And songs are beautiful when they're played live for so many reasons, but one of the things that's really special is you can only halfway like a song and go play it live, and the audience can make you fully in love with that song. Because Trust in You, I never wanted it on the record. I never wanted it to be a single. I just was like, oh gosh, this song is so corny. And it has been the song that the most people have, like You Say, people have definitely responded to, but the stories that come in are a lot of times for Trust in You. And the more and more I gathered these stories and saw people's responses in the live setting before You Say came out, I was like, whoa, I would have missed out on such a beautiful opportunity to fall in love with this song through the lens of all of these people if I had just said, I don't like it, we're gonna change. I don't like this, I just don't wanna do it. And sometimes you have to just go outside of your comfort zone with a song and let the time make you fall in love with it. Maybe it's not necessarily in the room that you were meant to fall in love with it, but years of knowing it, it actually builds into something beautiful that I can't imagine not singing that song at shows now, just because of the amount of kids and the amount of people walking through really hard situations. Like, they latch on to that song and it becomes a lifeline for them. So yeah, it's the live show, the songs, it's all been such a beautiful journey.